Hello and welcome to Train Signal. You are watching a lesson about package management. There's a lot to love about Linux. It's free, it's developed and maintained by an international community of really talented folks, and it puts the power to tweak the operating system back into the hands of the user, if she chooses, that is. But one of the things I love most about Linux is the sheer volume of software packages available, largely for free. So in the beginning, I spent, and in truth still spend, quite a bit of time downloading, evaluating, and testing software. Such is the way I choose to spend far too large a chunk of my free time. So as you've probably already deduced, a Linux package is just a piece of software. Now there are times when you may install directly from code, but most often you'll install via a precompiled, pre-configured piece of packaged software. And Linux has developed a tool that allows you to install, remove, upgrade, and otherwise tinker with this software, and this is called a package manager. Unsurprisingly, there are tons of package managers available, but there are only two most common ones that you'll need to focus on, RPM and Debian. In this lesson, we'll talk about the vital role of package managers, then we'll take an in-depth look at Debian and its associated tools, aptitude, and app, along with some configuration and troubleshooting options. Then we'll do the same for RPM and its associated tool Yum. If you're ready, let's begin with an overview of software packages. Programs, software, packages, all different names for the same thing. In fact, when you install software using the graphical interface, the menu item even says Add or Remove Software. Some of the packages I run on my system include OpenOffice, Bluefish and NetBeans for web development, my music player of choice is Banshee, and I even use OpenSSH for encrypted communications, all installed via a package manager. In our lesson on Linux installation planning, we talked about the concept of shared libraries and how many programs are reliant upon them. The same can be said for software, where one program may be dependent upon another to function properly. Luckily, you don't have to worry about all this yourself. Some package management tools make installation easier by tracking and taking care of these details for you. The packages usually come in the form of a single compressed file. If you've seen a Windows zip file, the similar tool in Linux is called a tarball. An installed file database is used to track packages, their associated files, and dependencies. And again, a dependency is a requirement, a package that needs another to work properly. The package manager will alert you when dependencies aren't met. They use a checksum as a sort of check and balances tool to verify software is valid. And when it comes time to upgrade or uninstall a package, this process is automated as well. We've talked previously about software that you might install from source code. One way to do this is to create what's called a binary package, and your package manager can help with that as well. One thing to note is that you need to choose one package manager, and in truth the choice is often made for you by the distribution you install, and they aren't interchangeable, as their packages and databases are different, though later we'll talk about a tool that can convert between the two. Now let's move on and talk about the Debian package manager. Born in 1993, Debian is one of Linux's early distributions. The Debian package manager is of course part of the Debian distribution and its derivatives like Ubuntu, Xandros, and Linux Mint. Debian itself doesn't use GUI tools for package management, but its derivatives often do. To install a Debian package, you use the command dpkg. The syntax is dpkg, followed by options, followed by action, then package files, and the package name. The options, as we've learned previously, can tweak the actions, which are steps to be taken. Over the next several slides, we'll review the most common options and actions. Administrators and users will spend a fair amount of time installing, uninstalling, and updating software. And those pursuing certification will need to be able to identify this command, its options, and actions. Now, in truth, you won't use some of these very often, but you do need to understand how to use them, just in case you do. And since our lab system uses Fedora, and consequently RPM for package management, we'll be able to get our hands dirty and try out some of these commands a little later. So just have your terminal windows on standby. Okay, on to the first option, which is --root equals dir. Now this command modifies the system directory as indicated by the dir. This option is used to maintain separate Linux installations. The middle column tells us which action you can use this option with. Now we'll review those next. -B or --auto-deconfigure disables packages that rely on the one being removed. --force-things forces a particular action. Now you should consult the man page, which we talked about previously, for more details on things. Continuing our options review, --ignore-depends equal package ignores dependencies for the specified package. Now I wouldn't recommend using this option unless you're really sure you have a workaround. Dependencies do exist for a reason. --no-act checks for problems like dependency issues and conflicts without actually taking any action. No packages are actually installed or uninstalled, and this is good for testing. --recursive installs all packages that match a wildcard in the directory and subdirectories that are indicated. And the last two here are pretty simple. -G says not to install the package if a newer version exists, and -E or --skip-same-version says not to install if the same version exists. Now it's important to note here that both the case of the option and the number of dashes are really important and must be entered exactly as they appear. Next, let's move on to review the actions. If you recall the syntax of the dpkg command, the second parameter is action. And the action, of course, is what you'd like the command to do. Over the next two slides, we'll cover the actions that you should be most familiar with. The first is -I or --install, which simply installs a package. And for this, you need the package file name. --configure reconfigures an install package and runs post-install scripts to set site-specific options. -R or --remove removes the package but leaves the configuration files intact. You might use this option if you anticipate having to reinstall the package a little later. -P or -purge removes the package along with the configuration files. -p or -print-avail displays information about the installed package. Wrapping up our review of actions, the next one is I or --info, which displays information about an uninstalled package file. This also requires the package file name along with the extension. -L pattern or --list pattern list install package whose name matches the indicated pattern. -L or -list files list installed files associated with the package. -S pattern or -search pattern locates packages that own the files indicated by the pattern. And C or -audit searches for partially installed packages and suggests fixes. Let's open a terminal window on our Ubuntu system and try out this command. Now before we go to the terminal, let's take a look at one of the websites where you can find the deb files needed for dpkg installation. Let's open up our browser, and you can see here that the URL is www.debian.org/distrib/packages. And if you scroll down, you can actually look for packages in the package listing that you see here for both stable and testing versions of software. And you can also search for packages via the search for directories or the search for contents. Okay, let's minimize that and now open a terminal window with Applications, Accessories, and Terminal. The package that I downloaded was called gbrainy, and it's just a game. So the first thing we should do is take a look at some of the package information for gbrainy. And we do that by typing in dpkg space dash lowercase p and the name of the package. And hit enter. And what we see here is a listing of some detailed package information. We've got version, the architectures that it works on, we've got dependencies, which are very important, and we've got an overall description of the program. Okay, now let's install it. I've downloaded the file, and all we need to do from here is type in dpkg space dash I for install and the name of the package. And you know what, before we do that, the package name is actually pretty long, so let's back up. We're going to hit an ls so we can make sure that we type the name correctly. So let's get a listing. And we can see gbrainy is right there. So now, let's type in dpkg space dash I for install, followed by the name of the package, which is pretty long. Starts gbrainy, gbrainy underscore 0.70 dash 1 underscore all dot deb. Let's take a look at that, make sure we typed in everything okay. dpkg dash I space gbrainy underscore 0.70 dash 1 underscore all dot deb. Okay, let's hit enter. And as you see here, we have an error. And what this error tells us is that in order to install software, we need to have root privileges. So let's hit the up arrow key, bring our command back up. We're going to hit home to go to the front of the line, and we're going to type in sudo. Go back to the end and hit enter. Now what will happen here is either you will be requested to enter your password, or if you've already entered your password, say within the last, I'm not sure what the exact time is, last couple minutes, then it should remember it and won't ask you again. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And it will proceed through with the install. And once it's done, you just have the prompt that comes back up. And let's take a look and make sure it's installed. We go to Applications, and we go to Games, and we'll see that gbrainy is indeed installed. Now let's say that we wanted to remove it. Let's use the same command, dpkg, but we'd add in the dash P or the dash R switch. R is for remove, but it leaves configuration files, and dash P purges everything. So let's go ahead and do a dash R. And then we'll put in the name of the package, which is gbrainy, and hit enter. Before we do that, let's make sure that we type in sudo, just to make sure. Okay, now hit enter. And the uninstallation process starts and completes. Let's take a final look under Applications and Games, and we'll see that gbrainy is gone. The apt-get utility, or apt-get, is another tool that lets you easily install, upgrade, or otherwise manage packages. Now where it differs from dpkg is that it automatically resolves dependencies, making installation much easier. The commands that can be used with apt-get are listed here on the screen. The first is update. Now the apt-get tool gets its available package information from the file that's located at /etc/apt/sources.list. And the update command merely requests that information be updated. The next is upgrade, which simply goes out and installs upgrades for all the packages. The select-upgrade performs any undone changes in package status following running of the deselect command. dist-upgrade upgrades with conflict resolution. Install simply installs a package by package name, and remove does the same by removing a package by package name. Continuing our look at commands, source gets the newest source package file by package file name as it's indicated in the sources.list file. Check just goes out and does a consistency check for packages. Clean clears information about retrieved packages from the Debian database. And auto clean is just like clean, except it removes information about packages that can no longer be downloaded. Now, out of these commands, you'll probably use the install and update and upgrade most often, but sometimes periodically it does help to do an auto clean just to keep things managed properly. Let's continue on the next slide with apt options. Before we get to the options, let me just say that I know you may be feeling a bit overwhelmed at this point. And with all the commands, options, and dashes, I shared the same frustration. But learning something new is always challenging in the beginning. Just trust me when I say that in time, all of this will become second nature. Okay, now on to the options. We've covered commands, and we know that the options will help further refine them. Let's dive in. The first is -d or --download only. Now this option says to download package files, but not to install them. And it can be used with the upgrade, deselect upgrade, install, or source commands. -f or --fix-broken attempts to fix unsatisfied dependencies, and it can be used with install or remove. -m, -ignore -missing, or -fix-missing ignores all package files that can't be retrieved, and this can be used with upgrade, deselect upgrade, install, remove, and source. -q or --quiet omits the display of the progress indicator information, and this can also be doubled with a --q. Continuing with our options, the first one is a mouthful. -s, -simulate, -just-print, -dry-run, -recon, or -no-act performs the simulation without taking any action, and that can be used with all commands. The next, -y, -yes, or -assume-yes can also be used with all commands, and that just gives a yes response to any yes or no prompts that pop up during an installation script. -b, -compile, or -build compile source package material after retrieving it, and it can be used with the source command. The last one is -no-upgrade, which tells apt-get not to upgrade if an older version exists, and that can be used with the install command. Let's go back to our terminal window and test out some of these commands. First, let's clear the terminal window with the clear command and hit enter. Now, just like with the package manager, we're going to have to pick out a package that we want to install. I'm going to use Midori, which is a pretty speedy open source web browser that I use from time to time. First, let's try out the -d option, which will download the files but not install them. So let's type in sudo space apt-get install. And if you recall, -d, it can be used with both install and upgrade and update. So do -d, and then the name of the package is Midori. And we'll hit enter. And as we can see, it went out and found the files, downloaded the one file, and completed. Now let's say we wanted to see what would happen if we tried the installation without actually performing the action. Again, we do that with the -s or simulate option. So let's type in, actually we're not going to type all that over again, we're going to use the up arrow. We're going to move back over with the left arrow we're going to change that to S. So the command is sudo apt-get install-s Midori, which will simulate the installation process. And let's hit enter. And what it did was just go through the process and tells us what it's going to install. There would be one package installed and some other information. But as you can see here, it says nothing was upgraded or removed. Now let's say we want to actually go ahead and install the package. Let's type in sudo apt-get install Midori. Let's make sure we type that in properly. Apt-get install Midori. And let's hit enter. And as you can see, the installation process this time is actually going through. It's processing the command. And you can see here that it completed the installation. Now let's check our applications menu. And if we go to Internet, we'll see our new browser, Midori, is installed. And you can try that out a little bit later if you want to give Midori a try. For now, let's close that. And let's say we wanted to remove it. We know the command is sudo space apt-get. Instead of install, we're going to put in remove and the name of the package, which is Midori. So we've got sudo apt-get remove Midori. And hit enter. It's going to tell us what it wants to remove, what we've indicated that we want removed, and it's going to tell us how much disk space that we have that will be freed after the process. So we have to enter yes or no. Let's go ahead and say yes. Type in Y and hit enter. We can see here that it says removing Midori, goes through processing, and completes. Let's check the applications menu again. Applications, Internet, and we can see that Midori is no longer in our list. Now let's try out the update command. Type in sudo apt-get update. This will obtain updated package information. Again, that executed pretty quickly. Just went out and took a look and see if there was anything that needed to be updated in our package listing. Let's try one more. Let's see if we have any broken packages or any consistency problems, and we do that with the check option. So let's type in sudo apt-get check and hit enter. What it did very quickly was read the package list, then it built the dependency tree that determined if we had any broken packages or any inconsistencies, and we had none, so we end up back here at the prompt. Okay, so we've covered the commands that are used to install, remove, or otherwise check software packages. But there is a command that lets you obtain information about the database that stores all of this information. Let's move on and check that out. The apt cache command lets you query the package database, known also as the package cache. You use the show pkg command to display information about a package, and the syntax is apt-cache space show pkg space package name. Stats tells you how many packages you've installed, how many dependencies are noted, and quite a few other statistics. An example output of this command is displayed on your screen. The syntax is apt-cache space stats. Unmet reports information on unmet dependencies, and this is useful for troubleshooting. The syntax is apt-cache space unmet. Depends will show the dependencies for the specified package. Syntax for that is apt-cache space depends space package name. PKG names displays the names of all packages installed on your system. And if you include a letter, the command will only return programs that begin with that string. The syntax is apt-cache space pkg names. Ready to try these out? Good. Let's head back to our trusty terminal window. Okay, first, let's clear the terminal window so we have a clean slate with which to work. Now let's try the first command. This will tell us information about a specific package. So get one in mind if you don't already have one. Let's type in apt-cache space show pkg, and I'm going to say Firefox, since I know we have the Firefox browser already installed. So we've got apt-cache show pkg and the name of the package. And let's hit enter. And this will give us a listing here of some information about our package. You can scroll through this list. There's tons of information, and you can take out what you need. We've got dependencies, got tons of other information that you can take a look at. Okay, so what if you wanted to see some stats? Let's type in apt-cache space stats and hit enter. This tells us about the different versions of packages we have, descriptions, dependency information. Scroll up a little bit. Total package names. So you get the picture. Now, one of the software installation problems that you'll run into most often is a problem with dependencies or unmet dependencies. So if you wanted to see a list of currently unmet dependencies, you use the unmet option. Let's try that one out. We'll type in apt-cache space unmet and hit enter. And it'll come back with a list of potentially unmet dependencies. Now these may or may not cause actual problems in your programs, but if you are running into a problem, this is a good place to look to find out a dependency that may be missing. Then perhaps you can download and install that. Now if you wanted to see the same information for a specific package or program, you just use the depends command. Let's try that one. Let's type in apt-cache cache space depends, and let's go ahead and use Firefox again. So again, the syntax is apt-cache, the depends option, followed by the name of the package that you'd like to find out the dependencies for. So hit enter. And again, it'll come back with that same information for the package that you indicated. Very useful for troubleshooting. And finally, if we wanted to get a listing of all installed packages, remember that command? Let's type it in. It's apt-cache space pkg names space sa. So we've got apt-cache pkg names space sa. And let's hit enter. We'll have a list here of all currently installed packages. Now let's head back to the presentation. Next, let's look at yet more alternative package browsers and installation tools. So far, we've only used command line tools to handle our package management. And another lesson about Linux that I'll drive home again is that there are often multiple ways to accomplish the same task. With that, let's look at some other package management tools. Deselect is a text mode tool that has many functions. You can browse the contents of the sources.list file to select packages you want to install on your system. You can review what's already installed, and you can remove and upgrade too. To use this program, you just need to type in deselect at the command prompt. And that brings us to Aptitude, Linux's newest innovation. This tool functions much like deselect, but adds in menus that you can access with Control-T. You'll probably not be surprised to hear that Aptitude can be further refined with other commands. For instance, typing aptitude space search space SSH will find packages related to the SSH package. Update updates package list, and install does exactly what the name indicates and installs a package. Remove a package by typing remove or using the dash parameter following the package name. Upgrade with full upgrade or safe upgrade. And safe is more careful about removing packages, so it may fail, and full is more likely to complete error-free. Auto clean is an option that I use periodically as it removes downloaded packages that are no longer available. And clean removes all downloaded packages, so be careful with this one. And finally, help will give you a complete list of all of these commands. Now, many in the Linux community prefer to use Aptitude as it kind of combines the functionality of both deselect and apt-get. All of them essentially accomplish the same task though, and in the end, you can just use whichever one you find yourself most comfortable with. For certification purposes though, you should understand each option and any parameters or subcommands. Before you make your decision though, there is yet another option, and it's called Synaptic. If you're the type that eschews the command line in favor of a GUI application, this is the tool for you. The image on the screen shows you the list of categorized packages on the left, with the individual options in the window just to the right. The GUI presents options to upgrade, install, and remove. So it's that time again. You guessed it, testing time. Let's go ahead and switch back to a terminal window. Now on newer systems, deselect probably won't be installed by default, so let's go ahead and install it using the apt-get command that we just learned. So let's type in sudo space apt-get install deselect. Hit enter. The installation starts and should complete probably relatively quickly. And it has. Now you should also recall that you'll need root privileges in order to install software. So let's type in sudo space deselect. Now you'll notice right away that this is a text mode program, so it takes a little getting used to. You can use your arrow keys to navigate. You've got the general options, update, select, install, config, remove. Let's first select the package that we want to install. And this is a little different than what we've done on the command line. So hit enter here. This little introductory screen kind of just gives you some tips on how to navigate, how to select, etc. Just hit the space key to move past it. Now I know that the program that I want to install is a game, so I'm going to hit the // so that I can search for it by name. Hit / and I'm going to type in known -sudoku. Now you may be able to change or select rather a different package, but this is the one I'm going to try. Go ahead and hit enter here. And it did indeed find the package. You use the plus key to select it, if that's the one that you want to install. And then we hit the enter key. We see here that it has the asterisk indicating that we've selected it. Let's go ahead and hit the enter key. Then we should be able to install. So go ahead and hit enter. And it'll go through. You probably recognize this from apt-get. Asks us if we want to go ahead and install the package we selected. And we'll say yes. And hit enter. And it should also relatively quickly go through the installation for the game. Everything should look fairly familiar at this point. And it's going to ask us if we want to erase any previously downloaded deb files. I'm just going to say no here. Hit enter. And it should be done. Let's quickly check that out. Let's go to Applications and Games, and we see our new game is installed here. Okay, let's go ahead and quit out of deselect. Now we're going to try the option that you'll probably use most often, aptitude. Aptitude works much like apt-get, and some refer to it as kind of a combination between apt-get and deselect. So to install a program, again, let's think of one that we want to install. I'm going to use Genie, which is an IDE that I use for development tasks. So let's type in sudo space, type that correctly, aptitude install, and the name of the program I'm going to try is Genie. So we've got sudo aptitude install Genie, and hit enter. Again, this should look pretty familiar to you by now. Names the package that we're going to install, says anything that's going to be removed that may no longer be needed, and asks us if we want to continue. Normally you would go ahead and hit yes here, and hit enter. And the installation will start for this one, may take just a little bit longer. And we're about 90% done. Okay, now the Genie installation is done. Let's take a look under Applications and Programming, and we see our Genie package is indeed installed. Now let's take a quick look at Synaptic. Synaptic is kind of the graphical representation of what we just did. Click on System, Administration, and Synaptic Package Manager. We'll have to type in our administrative password and hit enter. It'll take just a second for the package to come up. And this is Synaptic. It has the listing on the left-hand side of different categories of programs. And if you click on one, it'll show the packages that are in that category on the right-hand side here. You can also search for package by name. Let's try Genie. That's the one that we just installed using Aptitude. And we can see that Genie is listed here. The green box that you see indicates that this program is already installed. And if you click on it here, you can do several things. You can reinstall, and you can do a remove or complete remove. Similar to the things that we've done on the command line, just graphically. All right, let's close that down. In newer releases of Ubuntu, the Software Center appeared. Let's take a quick look at that. If you go to Applications, you'll see Ubuntu Software Center at the end here. The Software Center is supposed to be an improvement on Synaptic, since some people found it difficult to navigate and to search for applications. What you have here is a graphical depiction of those very same categories. We have accessories, internet applications, developer tools, and system tools. So again, if we click on the category, we'll have a listing of the software that's in that category that you can install. And if you found one you want to install, you would simply click on it and then click on the Install button. You'd have to authenticate. And then the process will begin and complete. Normally there's an indicator here that you can watch to see how the installation is going. And we can see that one is almost done. If you click on More Info here, you can see some detailed information about the program that you want to install, and you can still see here the progress indicator to indicate where we are. And we see now that the program has been installed. Here you can get a look at all the installed software in one listing. If you click on Installed Software right here on the left. And you can remove from here as well if you simply click on it and click Remove. Now that's a look at both Synaptic and Ubuntu Software Center. GUI tools aren't covered much on the Linux Plus exam, but I thought it'd still be good to take a look at those and see the options. I still find myself using Aptitude and Synaptic most often, but you'll have to find what works best for you. Okay, let's head back to the presentation. Next, let's take a look at how to reconfigure and troubleshoot packages. I found that on my Debian system, packages have more setup options. For instance, when I installed the database package MySQL, I was prompted to create passwords and other settings during the installation process. Later on, I wanted to change that password, frankly because I forgot it. But somehow during that process, I managed to mess up the entire program, so I ended up having to remove it and starting over again. This was of course before I learned about the dpkg-reconfigure command. This program will allow you to revert back to the initial standard configuration. So theoretically, I could have typed in dpkg-reconfigure space MySQL, and I would have answered those same initial configuration questions and gotten back to my standard settings. Hopefully you'll learn from my mistake. Now, Debian source packages aren't single files, but a group including the tarball we talked about before, a path file that's used to modify the source code, and a .dsc file that contains a digital signature to help verify the program's authenticity, or to make sure you haven't downloaded a malicious copy of the file by accident. Now, normally you won't have to configure Debian package tools, but if you do, you'll need to use the main configuration file that's located at /etc/dpkg/dpkg.cfg, or another location, which is /.dpkg.cfg. And you can see the contents of that file in the image on the screen. Now, on a live system with more packages installed, the output will of course be more lengthy. Now conversely, to modify the other package management tool apt, the file is the one that we've heard about before, etc apt sources.list, or another location, etc apt at.conf. Again, you're not likely to need to modify either of these, but you should still understand how and where to do so. Let's move over to our terminal window and take a quick look at this. So say that we've made a mess of the Genie file that we just installed. We wanted to wipe out that configuration and start over to the initial default settings. To do that, again, we use the reconfigure command. So let's type in dpkg-reconfigure space followed by the name. Let's try Genie. Now, we haven't actually changed anything in this file, but you get the idea of how it would work if we did need to change it back. So go ahead and hit enter, and you notice the error that we got here? That tells us that we have to run this command again as root. So let's go ahead and hit the up arrow key, hit home to move back over to the front of the line, and let's just type in sudo. You can hit N to go back to the end and hit enter. And as you can see, it doesn't necessarily report or tell you anything, but the command did execute because we don't have any errors. Now, moving on, if we wanted to modify, even though you probably won't need to, if you want to change some of the config files for package management, we do so first with dpkg. With that config file, let's type that in. We're going to type in cat space /etc/dpkg/dpkg.cfg. Hit enter. This is just going to show us the contents of that file. And as you can see, you just have some comments here to tell you what the file is for, what's allowed to be contained within the file. And as you see here, the only setting that we really have is to tell us where the log file location is. Now, what about the apt command? Let's take a look at that. Let's type in cat space etc apt followed by sources.list and hit enter. What you have here, again, you have some comments that will explain the contents of the file. And then you have some software sources here. Software sources are where the command will go and look for software that it needs to download and install. So this is one of those files that you might need to change occasionally, and there is a graphical version of this as well. Okay, let's head back to the presentation. Let's move on to the second package manager, RPM. RPM is the package manager for Red Hat and its derivatives like Fedora and Novell SUSE Linux. The role of the package manager on these distributions is the same as with their Debian counterparts. The naming convention for RPM packages is package name -a.b.c-x.arch.rpm. Package name is of course the name of the package. The ABC represents the version number, and the common form is 3 period-separated numbers. X represents the build number, which reflects minor changes to the package. ARC represents the architecture, and x86 is common. To install or upgrade a package, at the system prompt, you type in RPM space operation space options space package files space package names. The table on the screen highlights the most common operations or actions to perform. Out of this list, I most often use capital I, capital U, and lowercase e. Let's review them. The first action, -lowercase I, installs a package, but it can't already exist. -uppercase U installs a new package or upgrades an existing one. -capital S or --freshen says to upgrade only if an earlier version exists. -lowercase q queries a package to find if it's already installed and what files it contains. -V or --lowercase verify verifies a package is present and unchanged. -E says to uninstall the package. -B means to build a binary, given the source and configuration. As of RPM version 4.2, this was moved to the RPM build program. --rebuild builds a binary, given the source RPM file. Again, this was also moved to RPM build. And the last action, --rebuild DB, rebuilds the RPM DB to fix any errors. Let's move on and take a look at the options available to the RPM command. This table lists the options, or the second parameter available to the RPM command. The middle column indicates which of the operations we reviewed on the previous slides that can be used in conjunction with the option. The first is --root space dir. Now this modifies the Linux system with the root directory located at dir and can be used with any of the actions. --force forces an installation. -h or --hash displays hash marks to show progress. -v is most often used with -h to produce uniform number of hash marks for each package. -nodeps eliminates a dependency check. It will install or remove the package even if it relies on another package. --test will check for dependencies or other problems without actually installing. Continuing with our options, --prefix space path sets the install directory to the indicated path. -a or --all queries or verifies all packages. -f space file or --file space file queries or verifies packages that own the specified file. -p space package -file queries the uninstalled RPM package file. -i displays package information like maintainer, description, and even more. -R or --recursive displays packages and files on which the one specified depends. And finally, -L or --list displays files contained in one package. Now let's try out a couple RPM commands. Go ahead and switch over to a terminal window. Now to add or remove programs requires root privileges. So first, let's obtain root. Type in SU and your password and hit enter. Now the first thing that we want to do probably is to see what packages that we have installed on our system. And we do that with the RPM command by typing RPM space Q for query and A for all. Now the output, as you'll see in a moment, is quite lengthy, so we'll probably want to use the less command to help page the output. So we'll type in pipe space less. And we'll hit enter. And this shows a listing of all of the packages, and if you hit the page down key, you can page through the listing. To exit the listing, you would hit Q. But first, let's make note of one of the packages that we see here on the screen. About middle way through, right here you'll see cheese, and this is a webcam program, and we'll use this one for a little bit of testing. So go ahead and hit Q to exit. Now say we wanted to remove cheese. The command to remove would be RPM, and if you recall from our previous screen, -E is the operation to remove. Then we just need to type in the name of the package. Again, from that previous screen, we should have noted that that was cheese, CHEESE, dash 2.30.1 dash 1 period FC13, another period, and I686 to represent the architecture. Before we execute this command, I'm going to show you where cheese is actually installed. And if we hit Applications, and under Sound and Video, you'll see Cheese Webcam. Okay, let's go back and hit the Enter command. Now we're not going to see any progress here, but after a moment the prompt will reappear. And if we go back to Applications, in Sound and Video, we'll see that cheese is no longer in the menu. Okay, let's head back to our slides. Now let's take at another command line installer, an RPM alternative called Yum. If you recall from our earlier discussion about the Debian tool dpkg, you remember that apt and aptitude were the newer, more preferred tools for package management. And the same holds true for RPM. Yum is actually the preferred choice. This begs the question of why. And the answer is that with Yum, unlike RPM, you don't have to go out and search for and download package files. With an internet connection, Yum will find them for you by searching a predefined set of source repositories. Now Yum was first developed by the Yellow Dog Linux distribution, but it's now used by Red Hat, Fedora, and many others. Again, think of Yum as an equivalent to Debian's apt tool. The command syntax for Yum is yum space options space command space package. The options, as we've learned, depend on the command, and the commands are highlighted over the next two slides. The first is install, which installs one or more packages and dependencies indicated by the name. Update updates specified packages to the latest version, or if none is specified, it upgrades them all. Check update checks to see if updates are available and displays the name, versions, and repository information. Upgrade is just like update, but with the obsoletes flag, which offers better obsolete package management. Remove or erase deletes packages, and it's similar to RPM-E, but also removes dependent on packages. List displays information about a package. Continuing our look at commands, Provides, or what provides, displays information about packages that provide a specified program or feature. For example, if you type in yum space provides space SSH, that will list all the SSH related packages, including all the updates. Search will search package names, summaries, packagers, and descriptions for a specified keyword. Info displays info very similar to what you would get with RPM-QI. Clean cleans the cache directory, and shell enters yum's shell mode, where you can enter multiple commands. Resolve DEP displays packaging information matching the specified dependencies. Resolve DEP displays packaging information matching the specified dependency. Local install installs local RPM files and yum for dependencies. Local update will update the system using the specified RPM files and uses the yum repository to resolve any dependencies. And finally, DEP list displays dependencies of the specified package. I should also mention that Yum Downloader is a tool that will let you download but not install a package. To use it, just type the name, Yum Downloader, followed by the name of the package. Let's try out the yum command. Okay, we have an open and clear terminal window, and let's say we wanted to try installing a package. The command is su for super user. Type in our password. Now let's type in yum install, and I'm going to install a word processing program called AbiWord. Hit enter. Should start the installation process. You'll see some information scroll past on the screen to tell you what's being installed. Did some dependency checks, things like that. Asks you if you want to proceed, if this is okay, and we can say yes. Hit enter. Then the installation process will kick off, and you can see the progress indicated on the screen. Once this completes, we'll verify that it's installed via our Applications menu, and we'll try out some of the other commands. And again, the hash marks indicate progress. And finally, it is complete. Let's check out things in the Applications menu. Let's go to Office, and we can see that AbiWord is indeed installed. Now let's say we wanted to do a check for any updates. Let's type in yum space check dash update and hit enter. And it will list any updates that are available, and you can go through and do the upgrade process at this point if you wanted to, or complete any of the upgrades that are available. Now let's say we wanted to check out a specific program using the list command. Let's type in yum space list space, let's do AbiWord since we just installed it. Hit enter. And it'll list the name of the package that's installed and the version number. Finally, let's go ahead and remove AbiWord. So it's yum remove name of package. Should go through, do some checks here. Ask if you want to proceed. We'll go ahead and say yes to that. You can follow the progress as the program is erasing. And it's complete. During our first several lessons, whenever I refer to a Linux path, I've included the preceding and any subsequent forward slashes. But by now, you should be used to this format. So from now on, I'll omit saying them. For example, when you hear me say user lib, you'll know that the full path is /user/lib. Again, you probably won't have a need to do so often, but if you want to tweak the RPM or yum configuration files, They're located at user, lib, rpm, rpmrc, and that is of course for RPM. For yum, the location is etc yum.conf. You can set things like CPU optimizations and other features that you'll probably never need to bother with. Now earlier we talked about the incompatibility between the two package managers, but say you have a file in one format that you'd like to convert to another. You can do this with the alien command. Now it may not come installed by default, but you can install it on Debian systems only with apt-get space install space alien. Now this gets a little tricky, but you have to have RPM and Debian installed for alien to work properly. And it doesn't always convert dependency information correctly either. The syntax is alien space options space file. The options that you're most likely to use would be --2 -deb, --2 -rpm, --2 -slp, and --2 -tgz, which converts to Debian, RPM, Stampede, and Tarball formats, respectively. Let's first move over to our Fedora terminal window so that we can take a look at the RPM and yum configuration files. Then we'll switch over to Ubuntu and take a look at the alien command. Okay, first let's type in exit since we no longer need root privileges, and we'll clear the screen. Now let's first take a look at RPM's configuration file by typing in cat space user lib RPM, and the name of the file is rpmrc. Hit enter. And again, the configuration file is pretty lengthy. It's something that you probably won't be changing often, but you can see some of the options that are included and things that can be modified. Okay, let's take a look at yum's configuration file now. Let's also type in cat to display the contents of the file, etc, and this file is called yum.conf. Hit enter. And again, you can see some of the same information here. Just things that can be modified, log file location, and some descriptive information here in the comments. Okay, now let's switch over to Ubuntu and take a look at the alien command. Okay, so say we wanted to convert a deb file to RPM. To do so, again, we use the alien command. Now, alien isn't probably installed by default, so let's go ahead and install it. We'll type in sudo space. You can either use aptitude or apt-get. Either command will do. I'm going to type in apt-get install alien and hit enter. It's going to ask for the root password, and I'll put that in and hit enter, and the installation should begin. It asks us if we want to continue. I'm going to say yes. Just tells us here how much disk space it's going to take up, and it'll proceed through the installation process. I also wanted to note again that Alien runs on Debian systems, so this is why we're running it here. There isn't an equivalent for Fedora. Looks like we're about 80% done here, almost 90. Now that the packages have been fetched and downloaded, the installation should be completing shortly. Okay, looks like the installation is now complete. Now first let's get the file name for a file that we want to convert. So to do that, let's type in ls because I know that I downloaded some files to this directory. Okay, we have two here. Let's try the gbrainy one. So the command, again, is alien space --2 -rpm, which is what we want to convert to, followed by the name of the deb file. Let's type in gbrainy _ 0.70-1 _ all.deb. Let's go over that again. We've got alien, we've got the option --2 -rpm, then we have the name of the deb file, which is gbrainy _ 0.70-1 _ all.deb. And let's hit enter. And with a couple warnings here, we see that the RPM file has been generated. Let's type in ls, and we can see that we now have an RPM file, and if we wanted to use that, we could install it, take that package and install it on a Fedora system. Okay, let's head back to the presentation. Package installation almost always goes smoothly, but for the rare occasion when it doesn't, you'll find that problems are usually centered around dependencies. You have a few methods to troubleshoot and address these issues. You can use the rpm build command to either rebuild a package or force installation regardless of dependencies with the rpm-i space package name.rpm --nodeps command. Alternatively, you can try upgrading or replacing packages. And that concludes our lesson on Linux package management. Let's review what we've learned. I know we've covered quite a bit of material in this lesson. Package management is indeed a lengthy but extremely important process. Keeping software up to date and running smoothly is an important responsibility for an administrator. As always, I recommend that you try out the various commands and options on your system. This will help reinforce what you've learned. To recap, in this lesson, we learned the role of the package manager, the two most important types of package managers in Linux, the first being Debian. We also covered Debian's other tools, apt and aptitude, along with some troubleshooting and configuration options. We moved on to cover the same specifics for RPM, including its command line alternative, yum. And we wrapped up with a review of configuration and troubleshooting options. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.